Happy Thursday, everybody. This is Screenwriter Randall Rydell Russell, bringing you the second part of the process where I break down, tips, tools, and things that have inspired me to get to where I need to be with my screenwriting. And this is the part where I talk about my favorite screenwriters. Today, we are on number 4. This screenwriter is one of my favorites, mainly because of his passion for writing, constantly coming up with ideas left and right, turning things that shouldn't even be screenplays into screenplays, and having studios go, here, take my money. That's none other than John Hughes. Um, John Hughes owned the 80s and part of the 90s as well. He just had this voice and this ear for how kids and teenagers talked, and he transitioned into some really funny slapstick kind of comedies and things like that. But I feel like his teen movies were like where it was really at. This book I have of his, John Hughes' Life in Film, is something I got for Christmas a while ago, and I love this book. I read it like 3 times. He was a bit of controversial in how he kind of treated some of the people that he did movies with, but his passion for film and making was good, so this is a must. So John Hughes started off writing for the National Lampoon's magazine, writing comedy stories and things like that. National Lampoon's Vacation and Christmas Vacation came from short stories that he wrote in those magazines, so it makes sense why they were adapted. The movie National Lampoon's Class Reunion was his first credited screenplay. Not a very good movie, but you got to start somewhere. And then he did Mr. Mom with Michael Keaton, which kind of put him on the map a little bit, and it helped Michael Keaton as well. Then he did a pirate movie called Nate and Hayes, but the movie that really got him to where he ended up going is 16 Candles. I don't mind 16 Candles. I like it a lot, but it's not my go-to from him. But I know a lot of other people really dig 16 Candles. It's not my favorite. And then after that, we all know that he ended up doing a whole bunch of other stuff and blowing up, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about. All right. Starting off, my number 1 favorite screenplay that he's ever written is also my favorite movie of his, The Breakfast Club. I don't know what else I can say about this movie other than it's amazing. In one location, 5 actors besides the janitor and the principal, and great one-liners, and John Bender, played by Judd Nelson, just really, everybody did good in this movie, but Judd Nelson kind of carried this movie. You should go and read Roger Ebert's review of this movie. Spot on. The dialogue in this is fantastic, and the fact that it's hilarious but so real and dramatic at the same time just makes it such a real movie. So definitely Breakfast Club. Number 2 favorite screenplays from him is also one of my favorite comedies from him. I don't care what anybody says, I love this film. Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Matthew Broderick killed it in this movie, and it's crazy to believe that John Cusack was almost Ferris. He was also almost Bender in Breakfast Club, but I'm glad Matthew Broderick got it because there's something about his performances that was just great. And also Jeffrey Jones as Principal Rooney, which is also just hilarious, and his reactions, and Edie McClurg as Grace. Just good stuff. Like, just funny. Like, this movie, if you haven't seen it, I don't know what rock you're living under, but if you have, you already know why this is so good. So there's Bueller. Number 3 is when he was transitioning. He kind of wanted to get away from teen comedies and do more adult generated or adult content movies and things like that. Still a comedy, but Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. This movie, I watch it every Thanksgiving. It's just so funny, but then the end is so sentimental. It's so like Steve Martin realizes, wait, John Candy's been lying to me this whole time. He doesn't have a home. And when he goes back and finds out that the wife's been dead for 8 years and takes him home for Thanksgiving, it's like, you did all that and then just ended up bringing him home, which is really just so good. And the song playing at the end, every time, whatever, the song. I'm not gonna sing it for y'all, but this movie is a must. This is not the first John Candy movie that John Hughes directed him in. But they had a great friendship up until John Candy died. And he said that he probably would have done more movies if John Candy hadn't died, and his death strongly affected him. So, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Fourth favorite screenplay from him and fourth favorite film from him is also flippin' hilarious. And it's also one of the weirdest things that he's ever written because it's so different from everything he's ever written, but I think that's what makes it so good. You know what I'm talking about. Good old Weird Science. This would be the fourth and final movie he did with Anthony Michael Hall because they kind of had a falling out because Anthony Michael Hall didn't want to do any more teen movies because he turned down doing Pretty in Pink. And he was actually supposed to be in European Vacation, but he chose to do this instead. So that's why every time you watch a vacation movie, all the kids are different, because he chose to do this instead. But this movie, the premise is so 80s, so over the top. Kelly LeBrock is in this movie, young Robert Downey Jr., Robert Russler. Just everything about this movie is hilarious. And it's even sentimental at the end when she leaves because it wasn't anything like sexual. It was her trying to make men out of them, which was cool. But the bar scene when they go to the black bar, like to this day, still one of the funniest things ever. Hey, yo, Fast Man, let me tell you about my story, man. Last year, I was crazy in love with a little eighth grade bitch. Like, I know John Hughes wasn't trying to be, he kind of had a similar scene in the first Vacation too with all the black folks. I'm not saying that he didn't know how to write black folks, but the scene is funny. And I'll rewind that scene too because Anthony Michael Hall got really into that role, so in that scene as well. So Weird Science, if you haven't seen it, watch it. And fifth on my list, but not least, National Lampoon's Vacation, directed by Harold Ramis, who we all know is Egon in Ghostbusters, and also the director of Caddyshack and a bunch of other movies, and writer for a lot of those as well. This was the first Griswold family vacation movie. The fact that Chevy Chase is so neurotic in this film and just feels like he's being the perfect dad and all this other shit makes it one of the funniest movies he's ever done. It's just so good, and it's easily my favorite vacation movie. And then I would say Christmas, and then I would say Vegas, and then the new Vacation that came out in 2015. I don't like European Vacation, so you guys can all get mad if you want. I don't like European Vacation. It did nothing for me. But yeah, after that he still wrote a lot of blockbusters, but like when it came towards the 90s, his formula in the 80s kind of didn't work that well for the 90s, but if you're a fan, it worked. Like, I love Dutch. I love Curly Sue. It ended up being the last movie he directed, but he became a superstar. Well, he was already a superstar, but when he wrote Home Alone and Home Alone 2, it just like put him on the map. Like, this guy can do and write anything. He was the uncredited writer for Beethoven, if you didn't know that. He wrote Dennis the Menace, which I think as an adult is funnier than it was when I was a kid. The adult stuff and innuendos in that movie, and Buzz from Home Alone's role in that when he's trying to read the book to Dennis and he doesn't want to say sobbed, but he says Sababatuffi. It's good. And then John Hughes did just a lot of, I think it was more like, we're going to pay you like X amount of money, can you write this for us type of thing, which is fine. He was making a living, but he never capitalized after the mid-90s, I don't think. He just has this formula that works. You either like it or you don't like it. You're either a fan or you're not a fan, period. But John Hughes really set the tone, and kind of like, I listen to dialogue now and how people talk because of John Hughes. Tarantino is big on that as well, and a lot of other directors and writers like Shane Black and people along that lines, but we'll get into that later. But yeah, that concludes this episode of My Favorite Screenwriter number 4, and we'll see you next time.